In a quiet town by the river, there lived a young man named Ahmed. Ahmed was known for his intelligence and talent, but he was also troubled by something that kept him from reaching his full potential, his overactive mind. He was constantly bombarded by negative thoughts, doubts, and worries. Every time he tried to focus on his work or enjoy a moment of peace, his mind would bring up fears of failure, memories of past mistakes, or anxieties about the future. One day, feeling overwhelmed, Ahmed decided to visit the wise sage who lived on the outskirts of town. The sage was known for his wisdom and his ability to bring clarity to those who sought his guidance. When Ahmed arrived, he poured out his troubles to the sage, explaining how his thoughts were like a storm that he couldn't escape. The sage listened carefully and then led Ahmed to a nearby river. "Look at the river," the sage said. "What do you see?" Ahmed looked at the river and replied, "I see the water flowing steadily, carrying leaves and twigs downstream." The sage nodded. "The river is like your mind, Ahmed. The water is your stream of consciousness, and the leaves and twigs are your thoughts. Just as the river flows without holding on to anything, so too should your mind flow without getting caught up in your thoughts." Ahmed frowned, not fully understanding. "But how do I stop these thoughts from overwhelming me? They keep coming back, and I can't seem to ignore them." The sage smiled and pointed to a leaf floating on the water. "You see that leaf? The river doesn't stop it from entering, but it also doesn't hold on to it. The leaf is carried along and eventually flows away. Your thoughts are like that leaf. You don't need to stop them from entering your mind, you just need to learn to let them pass without holding on to them." The sage continued, "When a negative thought arises, acknowledge it, but don't engage with it. Don't give it power by focusing on it. Instead, let it pass like the leaf in the river. Over time, you'll find that these thoughts lose their grip on you." Ahmed thought about the sage's words and decided to put them into practice. At first, it was difficult. Every time a negative thought came, his instinct was to wrestle with it, to try to push it away or solve it. But slowly, he began to change his approach. Whenever a troubling thought arose, he acknowledged it, and then he let it go, just as the sage had taught him. As days turned into weeks, Ahmed noticed a change. The storm in his mind began to calm. The thoughts still came, but they no longer had the same power over him. He could focus on his work with greater clarity and enjoy moments of peace without being pulled into a whirlwind of worry. One day, as he walked by the river, Ahmed saw a leaf floating gently downstream. He smiled, realizing how far he had come. He had learned the power of ignoring the thoughts that once controlled him, allowing them to pass without letting them disturb his peace. Ahmed returned to the sage to express his gratitude. The sage nodded approvingly and said, "Remember, Ahmed, thoughts are like visitors. They come and go. You don't have to invite them in or let them stay. By learning to let them pass, you've discovered the true power of your mind, the power to remain calm, focused, and at peace." From that day on, Ahmed lived with a newfound sense of freedom. He was no longer a prisoner of his thoughts, but their observer, letting them flow by like leaves in a river, never allowing them to disturb the calm waters of his mind. The moral of the story is that thoughts, especially negative ones, do not have to control us. By learning to acknowledge them without engaging with them, we can maintain our peace and focus, allowing us to live more fully and freely. The power of ignoring thoughts lies in our ability to let them pass without giving them power over our emotions or actions.